The environmental conditions of Earth, including the climate, are determined by physical, chemical, biological, and human interactions that transform and transport materials and energy. In environmental science, we are going to discuss forms of energy, law of conservation, cycling of matter, and all the vectors affecting our life. In the first chapter, we are going to describe the 6 different forms of energy and types of work done by each form. Also, we will discuss the rules of sources and sinks in energy budget. We will define the law of conservation of energy and explain how the operation of fuel cell, which illustrate this principle. We are going to study the units by which energy, power, and force are measured and described. So let's start with some definitions. What is energy? Energy is the ability to do work. Energy is the ability to do work. And what is work? Work is done when a force is applied to an object over a distance. This is work. Any moving object has a kinetic energy. Kinetic energy means energy related to motion, and it can do this work by its kinetic energy. Work has to be done on an object to change its kinetic energy, meaning if a stationary object, if we apply work or a force on a stationary object, it will move. Or in case of motion, we apply some force on this moving object to stop it. Kinetic energy can be represented by this equation, okay, where E is the kinetic energy we need to calculate, M is the mass of the object, and V is its velocity. Sometimes energy can be stored and used at a later time. It's stored in the object till it can move or till we apply a force on it. For example, like a compressed spring. It has a potential to do the work. Okay, it possesses a potential energy. When we release the spring, its potential energy is transformed from stationary to kinetic energy, and also other forms of energy such as heat. Kinetic energy and potential energy make other forms of energy, like the chemical energy. Chemical energy is a combination of electrical energy and potential energy that are stored inside the atoms, while heat energy is a combination of potential energy and the kinetic energy of the particles in the substance itself. We have 6 main forms of energy: mechanical energy, chemical energy, electrical energy, radiant energy, thermal or heat energy, nuclear energy. Mechanical energy is to put something in motion. It's the same as kinetic energy. So when we move cars or we lift an elevator, it's made by a machine, okay, to perform mechanical energy. So the mechanical energy is to put something in motion, like moving of cars or lifting elevators by machines, okay, to do this kind of work. The mechanical energy, we said it before, it's a combination between the kinetic energy and the potential energy. Look here at this simple lever. The effort is applied on the object, This is the fulcrum that help you to perform the work, and this is the load. By performing or applying effort, the load is lifted, and the energy here is a mechanical energy. As for chemical energy, we can define it as the energy that are stored in molecules and in chemical compounds. We can find the chemical energy in food, wood, coal, petroleum, and in other fuels. When the chemical bonds are broken between the parts of such compounds, either by combustion, means heating, or by other chemical reactions, the stored chemical energy is released in form of heat or light. When we burn fuel, when we eat food, we get energy as heat, okay, or the ATPs from burning fuels, okay, will break the chemical bond between the molecules of the fuel material, okay, and in this case heat will be released or even light, okay. So the chemical energy in this case by combustion can change into heat energy or light energy. As for food, let's take glycogen as an example. Glycogen is a storage form of sugars. Glycogen stored in muscles. When muscles does some work like in exercising, okay, the glycogen in muscles will be broken into glucose. The aim of this process is to provide your body with energy. So in this case, the chemical energy stored in the glycogen molecules will be transformed into heat energy. Number 3 is the electrical energy. When is electrical energy produced? It's produced due to the unbalanced force between what is present in the atom, electrons and protons. So the imbalance between electrons and protons produce electrical energy, because this imbalance will cause a motion of the electrons. This is called the electric current. The electric current is due to moving of the electrons through a wire. This is an example of kinetic energy, okay, transformed into electrical energy. Okay, see this? This is a copper wire attached to a battery. What causes the motion, and a magnet of course, what causes the motion of the copper wire? The copper wire gets its motion due to induction of electrons in the wire. This produces electricity and causes the spinning of the copper. That electricity is a secondary source of energy. And what is meant by secondary source of energy? It means that other sources are needed to produce this kind of energy. So we need another source of energy to produce electrical energy. Like our example, we need kinetic energy to produce electrical energy. Radiant energy. I'm sure many of you have seen an X-ray. Okay, this is an X-ray. It's done using the radiant energy. So how is radiant energy released? It's released due to the change in the internal energy of the particles. It will cause the atoms to emit energy in form of electromagnetic radiation. So it can penetrate your skin and allow the doctors and the physicians to see beneath your skin. This is done by radiant energy. Okay, radiant energy includes many kinds of waves. The waves of the visible light, the radio waves, ultraviolet wave, infrared, gamma rays, the microwaves, and X-rays we have seen a second ago. What about thermal energy or heat energy? Of course, thermal is the same as heat. It's related to a motion or vibration of molecules. Okay? When you move, you will transform the kinetic energy into heat energy. When you rub your hand, it will produce heat energy. When you put a piece of ice on your hand, the heat will transfer from your warm hand to the cold ice piece, cause it to melt. Okay, so heat will flow from higher temperature to lower temperature. When heat flows into a substance, it may increase its kinetic energy of the particles. That's why temperature is raised. So the reason temperature is raised during heat flow, because the particles itself increase its kinetic. And I'm sure you have heard about atomic bomb and nuclear bombs. They produce their enormous aggressive explosion due to nuclear interaction between protons and neutrons. Okay, so we can define nuclear energy as the energy coming from binding of protons and neutrons. The nuclear energy is released from atoms in two different ways. First way is known as nuclear fusion. In nuclear fusion, energy is released when atoms are fused, okay, or combined. Like here, in this kind of fusion, nuclear fusion, the protons are the red circles and neutrons are blue circles in an atom known as deuterium. The fusion between the protons and the neutrons produce a nuclear fusion, nuclear energy. Second kind is known as nuclear fission. Fission means separation or splitting. So in this kind of nuclear fission, energy will be released after splitting the parts of the atom. It's used in nuclear power plants to produce electricity. So this kind of nuclear energy produced from nuclear fission is used to produce, this is the fission reaction, the splitting of atoms. Like in uranium 235, we use it to produce electricity after going under a chain of reactions, very rapid, very technical, and it will produce a massive amount of energy in a fraction of second. What are the sources of energy on Earth? Mainly the sun. The sun is the main source of energy to the whole Earth. The sun can drive the wind, ocean currents, and the water cycles and other cycles. The sunlight energy is used by plants to carry out photosynthesis. In this case, it's very important for the start of any chain in the ecosystem, because any chain in the ecosystem should start with an autotroph. Autotrophs mainly are plants that other living organisms feed on. Also, after death of plant materials, other living organisms, over millions of years, it's converted into fossil fuels we can use to get energy. An energy sink means anything collect a significant quantity of energy that is either lost or even not considered transferable in the system under study.